Yeah, we saw
our five senses are like key in judging.
if you're handling your five senses right, they are the adjudicator. If you're sensing your surrounding to know your environment, then you are an adjudicated one. And then in that measure, you're able to sense with a sixth sense, and that is the spirit's essence, that really what we're gathering. Mm-hmm. So let's move through this. So now, to expand and fill the mind from what we perceive to be true. Why do we do this? So we're required to really meditatively ponder confusing and or confounding questions so clarity may peacefully abound as resolve. I highly recommend we start, or for us, this resolve came when I started questioning the English narrative, and then it looped itself around as it completed, because everything about the language is a circle. The English is directly connected to the Greek is directly connected to the Hebrew, if you can follow it all the way through. So we speak words and we blow by them, but we're not connecting it to the etymology of why the word is the word. And this is the sort of the problem in society today, is we're missing the frequency of intention.
Well, so, and that would be if we're using English, which is a dead language, right, then that frequency is of death.
That's exactly right. We're missing the intention of life.
Yeah.
The intention of life is to know what death is in its true and right definition, because what I just said was Genesis, Bereshit to Shemot. That's the journey. That life would equate you as a summational measure in totality, and now you are death as beyond, because death beyond and Hebrew are the same word. So now we're kind of jumping, because I know there's many questions like, hey, this is, yes, I'm going to try to get to this question, and hopefully I can answer a lot of them. And so here's 3 questions. If we know the disposition of beginning's purpose, the blueprint, and the intention of position, L, God's destination, in the same space of thought and time, are we omnipresent? It's a rhetorical question, just something to process to expand our mind. Here's the next question I wanted to ask you. Again, rhetorical. If we study and enact the law of the word, and as a prosecutor, we witness ourselves being sentenced, then are we a paradoxical verse? Just a question. The last question. If we have a circumcised heart, then do we equate as the radius mirroring the whole dimensional measure?
Sorry about that, I jumped down on my screen.
So the paradox of being circumscribed as war fully and wholly encompasses as peace. I know that these seem tangled, but they're not. And that's my point, is these are saying absolutely you are past, present, and future if you know what Hebrew means. If you're a Hebrew, then you're already from beyond. And that means if you're in your present now, then you're connecting past, present, and future.
It's already saying that you see within.
You see within. So let's just go down. So now here's a little narrative. Now, reason I'm sharing this, I'm not to confuse you, or am I? Because if we completed a journey of war and we resolve ourselves as peace, then we are at war and peace in one moment. And in that, because this is what's about to happen to the world, is an adversary will be coming in, but not what the world thinks. The adversary will be resolved as peace, but those that haven't equated peace, it will seem as an adversary. Because war and peace live in the same moment. It's purpose for us to know this. I'm talking the innocence of the language. I'm not talking, yes, there is a narrative at hand right now that's talking a narrative of negativity. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about taking the word and compressing it down into innocence of neutrality, and then by the expression of extrapolation, I fill it back up to it by its intention. This is the spirit whisper, or the silent song that we do within us. I'm hoping you're kind of tracking with me. So this is a language of what a Hebrew would be. And this is what they would do. In the space of time from beginning, we are developed by our own deposition. An opening statement validating the word of life by witnessing the act of walking out West's death sentence. This is a calibration of compass language. While in time's limited statute, we are rightfully affirmed by the depth of South's posting. As the gathered sum of letters, we form and equate as whole word recalled, as word sent, as letter upon letter, in verbatim, we are enveloped or enveloped as questions answer. a response simply defined as in one paragraph, a word made ready, as carved out, as forwarded, as being beyond inscription.
So if some of that's beautiful, Ken. I love how you pen things. That's just poetry in motion. If you guys are not quite connecting, I will recommend that you go to the YouTube channel and take a look at Ken's compass teachings, which are in the playlist called Everything Speaks. And that is, he did some whiteboarding for his son, not using a lot of the Hebrew words, but Hebrew concepts as a way of navigation through the compass. And then on some of the latter stuff, he did some things regarding the letter that was sent. It was done around, I think it was posted on December 25th. And there was a couple right around there that this is just kind of a summary of those 3 videos in that month of December. So if you guys get lost at all, please go and maybe listen to those. But the compass teachings will help a lot.
Yeah.
They will help a lot. If he just lost you, they will help a lot.
And this will be another teaching, because we need to know the way of right, and that's actually right, the way of self, which is defined as faith in Hebrew, and affirmation, right standing, righteousness, because you can't become judge magistrate without knowing the way of just and right. That's and I don't want to linger on that one, but I want to quickly blow through this paradox. So let's just go through that. Now we can just see what a paradox, it means an opinion, to think, really. A statement that is seemingly self-contradictory, yet not logical, but obviously it's not untrue. So that's what a paradox is. We need to redefine what truth is through the language.
Contradictory, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, if you want to read this, you can say it
Hence
leads,
why the war and the peace being
right,
contradictory, yet they're both truth.
But it's following sound reasoning,
right,
that yet yields an illogical conclusion by its own definition. So now let's just quickly go through this. Now let's define, we're talking about paradox, and let's just quickly go through omnipresence through etymology, because this will all connect to Hebrew. So omnipresence means all, every, whole, of every kind. So now the whole language is circumnavigating, and we could say evil, good, black, white, mother, father, war, peace. It's all bringing it around to circumnavigate yourself through the law of the sea. We have to know how to circumnavigate. So now omnipresence means all, every, and it also means present. So if we say that be present in your moment, then this is directly connected to saying, I am omnipresent.
That's really good. Heather's
So now
got a question here before we move on.
Okay.
Heather, you had a question?
Hey kids, I do. I'm just wondering, I know, right? So this pertains to consciousness a lot, because through my inner excavations and how I ended up here was, the people I'm surrounded with, and a lot of people aren't picking up what I'm laying down when I went into this. And so the David Hawkins, the consciousness scale, do you two think that this kind of pertains to almost a permission when your inner waters slow down some and there's more shalom than chaos? Your intentions are more pure. I come to the table bringing instead of just taking, etc. More will be revealed as you go down that path.
I would totally agree with that statement 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, we'll get to the purity and the essence of this. You cannot be a Hebrew and not know purity and innocence. It's impossible.
Nor can you be a taker.
No.
You have to be one that has that giving nature.
Yeah.
And it's a giving back as a gift of who we are. It's, because we've been given so much that we automatically turn and give, because that's the nature of the essence of our being. And it's less of self. Does that make sense? So selfless is being less of self. And that means if we're less of self, then we're more of creator. So when we move into the consciousness of all consciousness, the expanded awareness of who we are, the Aleph, the expression of the fullness of the Aleph, we're no longer taking, but we are constantly giving, as well as receiving in total balance, but not taking. Completely different.
We've learned to generously receive, gently receive, and generously give. That's the language of a Hebrew. So I want to get through this.
I hope that answered that for you.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. And now
it's a great statement. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Hebrew knows the language of flow very well.
Yes.
So being present is fully encompassed. So we need to know that because we're talking about center. When we say present, that means you are centered between the mother and father component of your nature. And we're talking your own environment. What are your surroundings? What does it look like? What are you wrestling, right? Because we're all doing our best to calibrate into what I call center and removing the wobble. So when we're traveling at light speed, we don't disintegrate, right? Because there's no moving at light speed with a wobble. So let's look at this language of present really quick. And I need to get to the next file so I can bring this back to the thalamus, connect it to the brain so we know what the mind of Christ is, because we are deciphering what the mind of Christ is right now. So it's being present, be before. So now we have present, but in its own definition, it's be before.
Wait, I gotta move down a little bit. I think you're down a little further than I was. Okay, there we go.
So now it's saying, so now we have the language of before, but it's telling you to be at hand. And so in its own language, it's already contradicting itself, but in a positive way, because we don't know what it is. And it says that it's from see pre, which is the prefix to present. So what does pre mean? To be present. So we have sent, you are pre-sent.
Pre-sent. Well, you and I were talking about that the other day. I was laughing about that. It's like, oh,
a
pre-sent.
Hebrew would know that they are pre-sent as a spy into the land of Bereshit, Genesis, for the process of accessing, which is Shemot. And we're going to get to this. So now the pre-sent are the spies in the land. You are to be an eyewitness to the surroundings. You should know your environment well because a Hebrew is in the frequency of God. You are sent ones into the land for the purpose as a watcher would watch and unveil what is to be unveiled. You, Ata. I don't have much more to go in here to connect this because we need to know what needs to be healed. It's your mind. It's our mind that needs to be healed. I need to make this point. So to be able to be present then is connected to before. So now we have before and present. Now we go to the word for present, and present means the present time, the time now, passing, this point, act or fact of being present, right? And so, and it's talking really about the space around you. That's your environment. Enviro means what encircles you, what surrounds you as a potential. So now this word for pre-morse, and so it means before in time or place. Now, anyone that knows our teaching, this is starting to lean into Adam Kadmon.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is the man arises as before, as the man of antiquity, because that's what before is saying. You are the ancient. We are of ancient. We're an ancient seed line. We are pre-sent into the experience to express what it is that we already are. So now this word for pre again. Now it means before in place or time, but now it's also connected to later in its own definition. So now we have for present, you are before, and now you're later in its own definition, later on to be later at some point in the future. So to be present means you are past and future in your current moment. That's omnipresence by etymology only, not even going into the Hebrew yet.
Well, just as a comment on that too, I think it's really interesting of how, like a lot of us in our foundational pieces, we had all of these O words that were projected to God outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything was about this external orientation, never showing us the internal orientation of who that is, right? So omnipresent, omniscient, and I can't even say all the O words, but it was all externalized.
Yes.
So separating us. And so by conditioning us thinking that way and separating us from the totality of the one being, the infinite creator,
yes,
that's sin. It separated us from the truth.
You've missed,
and we began to believe a lie.
Yeah, sin is simply you're not seeing the potential. You don't have the eyes to see the potential of who you are. That's all in its innocence. All it means is like you got to go a little bit further. You're not quite hitting the mark of potential. You're not seeing who you are.
You're wrestling with it.
It's not a negative unless you want to build it up to be something that someone else filled it up and projected upon you. Shame, guilt, disgrace is a self-adorned garment. You have to willingly want to pick it up and adorn yourself in it. But if we do our due diligence, as a Hebrew should, and we render the word down to innocence, because that's what it does, and fill it back up, now you're adorned in the frequency of that potential, because that's who you are. That's what it's done for us. We've seen this. So let's quickly look at this. So now in its own definition in Greek, it means beyond. That's the definition of ivri, a Hebrew. So a Hebrew is present. And if a Hebrew is present, then he's also past and future by etymology connecting.
An omnipresent one.
An omnipresent one. You are omnipresent.
Wow.
You are a witness and a testimony to the omnipresence.
So as a Hebrew, you rouse yourself awake to the knowledge and the knowing within that you are omnipresent.
Absolutely. How do you do this? By the bloody feet, I raise my head. You have to know, we would be well advised to know how to circumnavigate to become this intention. You're going to have to journey. How? Better sheet. Be clear. Render yourself no confusion, no fear, no doubt. Know yourself well, and you will know the name of Exodus, Shemot, because that's who you are. I am Bereshit Shemot. So let's go into saying why I said that. So now quickly, this just goes. So now we have.
Wait, so Daryl, is that a new question or a new comment?
Yes, I just wanted to say, so then the Hebrew is the quintessential definition of being.
Yes. Becoming being. So
Exactly.
good question. So because what we're doing right now, we're being it. We should be this. But what we're doing is, because we're asking questions of what a Hebrew is, I've had to go right on my proverbial whiteboard and touch it to show you the becoming. So this is what I'm showing is the becoming of the potential of being. But we're having to touch it, right? But I'm touching me to show you the expression of you. But we are in our state of being as being consciously and situationally aware when we know this intimately. When we know that, you've fulfilled the becoming, and there you are being as an omnipresent one. But now what I'm doing is I'm touching the whiteboard per se, and I'm expressing the becoming of being.
So the difference between us and, let's say, everybody else is our awareness.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be consciousness means to be centered, means you are situationally aware. And what's the best position to be situationally aware in? Center.
Right in the center.
Because you
Right.
see all degrees all the time.
And so Daryl, that's interesting because I just posted this morning on Facebook about awareness, and it's the word yada, to intimately know.
We're gonna touch on that.
Awareness.
Yes.
And
yes,
so I
yes.
broke it down of what that looks like versus the head knowing versus the heart knowing. Because anything that we intimately know is not up here. Intimacy is created in the heart space, not the mind. The mind is always going to separate and judge. The heart is what reveals and unites. So that's yada.
So let's quickly go into this word again. So I'm almost finished this file, then we're going to jump to what I want to really touch on. So
Just one more thing, because it just came to my mind with yada. So when it says that in the narrative that Adam knew Eve and everybody took it to the carnally level, the way that yada is in the expression, it means to intimately know from the heart space. It had nothing to do with sex. It had to do with the intimate knowing of here by entering into the door into each other's heart space so that they would know each other as one.
the only way that it really is connected, the only way that we like this, actually Hebrew is directly connected to copulation. Hebrew is directly connected, it means you're covered as in copulation. And we're going to get to that
And of
word.
course, in that, speaking of intimacy,
It's speaking that as the word, it's actually the straight line. The way of upright correctly. And please don't get the negative on this. Please hear what I'm saying from the spiritual point of view, my perspective. The word creates upright. It's a phallus language, but it's more of the straight way of upright. When we comprehend this of knowing the way, because any ship in the sea knows the law of the sea and they know upright well.
oh, they have to have a center mass.
They center mass. That's what it's all about. In the negative, they bastardize this and it's just into whatever it's into. But when we know this in the innocence of spirit, what happens now? Rakam, the womb of the wind, comes as a vortex around that shaft. And now we have the penetration of you becoming and fulfilling the word of straight by rising into the stand of being right, the way of straight as erected. Now the wind comes around you as a tornado, and it's called the mother's womb.
And I love that because you just described creation
Yes.
energy.
Absolutely.
Creation energy.
You have now vortexed yourself through the lesser narrative of navigating the feet to the head, of circumnavigating yourself. And in that conclusion of resolve, there you stand. The spirit will now join you as one, wrapping you as the womb around the phallus. You are now fully impregnated as one again.
And that means you bring forth life.
You are now a life giver because you have just journeyed the way of death. And death simply means you've journeyed through self-deliverance. That's all.
Moving into beyond.
Moving into the beyond. Anything about beyond is death. Anything on that side that we don't know. The Hebrew knows life and death, but they only knew death through the frequency of life's journey. That's the difference. This isn't a death message. This isn't a dark occult thing. This isn't ritual sexual. This isn't that. This is so far away from the innocence of purity. When we see this with just that essence of desire and longing of that intention, then we fulfill this mandate, this law, this transaction of light. Light begets light as one again. That's what's
So then
happening.
would you say that the Hebrew and the Aramaean have become one?
Yes,
Most
because
definitely.
the Aramaic by definition, Aram means the lofty citadel. The heart is now rendered clear and the head is now able to be raised again, but we have to build the shouldering of government. You have to know your environment to know the government. And in that position, the Aram, the head will be lifted. This is the citadel in the high place.
In other words, the head will be lifted through the space of the heart.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the placement of the headstone, Rashit, a better sheet that from the beginning you already were the lofty place. But we can't go beyond our own, we can't step beyond ourselves and thinking that we take it all to the head, because now we just exacerbated the head wound with sophistication.
Sophistries.
Right. And we've now elevated ourselves without doing the due diligence of the walk.
Right.
The walk is what produces the humility necessary to raise your head.
We're not necessarily co-creators, because that would show that we're separated as as in two. That has been part of the issue, is separating ourselves from the fact that we are creators. And it's something, and the reason why I say that is that we have been conditioned to believe that we are co-creating with that which is outside of us, that it's us and God, instead of realizing, which is a thought of separation, which goes back into the definition of sin, anything that separates, because it causes us to wrestle inside. So what we did through false humility is we put the on front of it.
I will show you right now.
Does that make sense there, Alan? So we put the on front of it to say that we're co-creators, because how dare we say that we are a strong leader, teaching shepherd that has become one and is God manifest.
I'll show you what it is in one word. We're right here, right now. I have this all laid out. So I want to just walk this through. So this is whole as a co-creator in right definition. And so this word so now we're going to walk through this. So we need to define what whole is first, right? Because this is how you circumnavigate. It means entire, whole, unhurt, uninjured, safe, healthy, sound, genuine, which was right back to Genesis, straightforward, undamaged, salvation, welfare, whole, complete, from health. And that means from health means holy and sacred, being whole, sound, or well. And this is where we get that we say we have free will. No, there's only two wills, that of ill will and that of well will. The only way we can equate it properly is when we journey the well will, then we can see what the ill was. But
the ill would be separation.
We have to heal it. So let's see what this is. Let's see what this good medicine is. So the humble medicine of divine inspiration, this would be a co-creator in right definition, olive, Samek, olive. That's a healer. That means I am mother and I am father. We are co-creating within one vessel as supporting myself as one measure. That is a mirror right there. I can now define it that co-creating is now rendered down to one completed measure, and there I am and there you are.
So to say the way you're sharing it, it would be taking our divine masculine and our divine feminine energy, uniting them together with the wedding ring and the signet ring right here in the middle, where they are now unified and they're in that place of intimacy as a creator, as those who are a healer.
Yes, you're actually
Because you're
looking.
not out of balance. You're centered.
Yes, you're actually, if you can see that olive, Semitic olive correctly, if we look down on that, and I was to cut the top of your head open and look down, you're looking at your brain. Your right hemisphere and your left hemisphere are woven and knit as one again, no longer separated. They are now one brain, one heart, cohesive, situationally aware from center, fully conscious.
You
Back-
just described heart-brain coherence.
Absolutely. So, but again,
That's so awesome.
but we look at the word we look at it, we're not realizing from a greater perspective, it's you, if we can only see what it's saying. That's the lovely in this.
If we've journeyed the path of healing.
Right. Not extrapolating it out for the purpose of speaking it per se, but my speaking is my resonance of being. There's a difference there. So let's just look at this word for now. Let's just jump down. I'm almost done with this page. I need to move into the thalamus. So let's look at this word, because this medicine, I need you to go down a little bit, Karen.
Okay.
So that is huge right there. And I know I'm blowing by lots of things, and we can talk about this on a future date, but this is you. So now let's look at this word ga'a. It means to depart, to be cured or healed, to remove the bandage from the wound. This is talking about you and your skin. This is talking about the lesser narrative being removed from you, and you are standing in the full potential. So if I wanted to, on the first verse here, though, it means to heal you or to cure you. One occurrence of this only one occurrence. And it's so now this is the power through humility, through being weaned and ripened. You will inhale the inspiration to exhale the expanse of this revelation. That's what it's saying. So you will expand yourself in this awareness in between the breath of inhalation and exhalation. There you are in the expanse of beyond. So let's just go down a little bit further, because I need to define this. So now the other occurrence of this, and it's the same spelling.
I see that. Yeah.
And now this is saying good medicine.
Right here.
This is what the natives, what is good medicine? Good medicine is knowing the journey of humility that would raise your head. It's the living breath within you.
Oh my gosh.
Hold on.
No, this is a measurement of oil.
Yeah, it's the name.
That's the root. That
This is Mashiach.
well, it's the permutation for the word Mashiach, which is, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know.
That's so incredible.
Part of the problem when we're sharing like this, I know Carrie wants to jump into the forensics part of it, and I'm trying to only bring the blueprint. The forensics, we can stop anywhere in this, believe me. We could stop and camp. We could have camped way up a couple pages beyond this and just said, let's just do this.
But there's nothing saying that you have to get to the end of your paperwork.
No, we won't. We won't. I'm not.
Because I want to leave time for us to talk with them.
Yeah. I just need to at least get to a conclusion of what Hebrew is. And then if we need to do it in the next week, we'll fulfill this in the next week. I'm not anxious, but I've painstakingly put this together to set it up for your success. So if you're just patient with me, I can present the answer before the question is even asked. Hopefully, if I've done this correctly, the Spirit showed me that this is what you need to do. So this is the maturity of the Gamal. This is what the Gimel is, the first letter on Ga'a, which means to be healed. And it means the maturation of being fulfilled as full, because the world is filled with every ingredient that you need to make your medicine. You just need to know how to crush it. And so this is the sense of...
I felt that.
So this is purposely said that if you know the Gamal, then you would be dealt with fully. You have rendered down. You have taken the herb, you've taken the medicine, you put it in the bowl and the pills, and you crushed it. You've performed the medicine necessary. Now ingest it to become full of it, so you'd resonate to Ga'a, as healed, as whole, as no longer forgetting. This word, one occurrence of that right here, or the first occurrence, the gathering of degrees to become whole. Of course, it's in 2 Samuel 2:2-1. The Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness. This whole verse, we're not going to go into it, but this whole verse is saying that you've ascended by self-navigation, the way of self, faith and affirmation. You are now affirmed to arise as the Eastern man, Adam Kadmon. I now call you healed and whole. Welcome to the dark north. The mystery is solved, and it's you.
So I'm not going to go really deep, but this is the gathering that comes through the word.
Yes.
Mel is an Aramaic and Hebrew word for the word. So we're gathering what we need to wean and to ripen us, to deal fully with us in our maturation process through the word. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what we get limited perspective in the English, but you get the fullness of the maturation through your gathering through the Hebrew and the Aramaic, because the frequencies of life.
Yes, absolutely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot in this that maybe you can see, maybe you can't see, but let's just look at this. So let's go to the Hebrew file. That file's done for that one.